Hey everybody, Sean Bodine here with another reaction video. My last reaction video I did was around September, and I would have done this a lot sooner, but my mom invited one of her friends to stay here while she was looking for an apartment because I think she got evicted. Wasn't necessarily her fault, but right now she's looking at an apartment, and my mom and my stepdad are in Florida with my dog, so I've got the house all to myself. And we're going to be reacting to how Norfolk Southern retired 703 locomotives. Cal Unit Productions has done a lot of great videos over the years, and I've been wanting to react to something he did for a while, and now he's given me the perfect opportunity to do so. Just got to set the video into full screen. We are set at high definition, turning off annotations. All right, let's begin.
Norfolk Southern, what's your function?
Hooking up the country, helping business run.
I should have known that song was going to
Precision
appear.
scheduled
Longer, heavier,
railroading.
fewer, do more.
The business
less.
practice
Oh,
that
no.
puts our nation's railroads
Yeah.
to hell.
East Palestine.
This business
Good
strategy
God.
was made to focus on aggressive cost cutting, which
Norfolk Southern has gotten a lot of criticism over the years for its negative use of precision scheduled railroading, and you'd think they would learn from now. I think I remember they first started using PSR in 2020, and right now this is being recorded the day after New Year's, 2026. Happy New Year, by the way. I meant to say that earlier in the video, so forgive me for forgetting. Let's see what else Cal has to say.
saw trains getting longer, maintenance being reduced,
Oh,
multiple
no.
layoffs, derailments, and
Now, wait a
facility
minute.
closures. And for
If you're
foamers,
running fewer
that
trains,
would also
why would
see
you also
locomotive
decrease
models
the
being
maintenance?
retired in masses.
You should do it more often
Norfolk
so that
Southern
the
was
tracks can
amongst the
stay in
victims
good
of
condition.
PSR, and probably the worst offender. And amongst its cost-cutting hellhole,
1048
it saw
now.
700 locomotives being ejected from the roster. From yard switchers to mainline titans,
Oh,
we
no.
will find out what Norfolk Southern threw away at the start of this
Man,
crappy
there's
decade.
some
And what I affectionately call
SD70M-2s
this
there. I remember they initially got retired in 2019, but in 2023, I saw one of them on a rolling pipeline running east through Lansdowne Road in Lansdowne, New Jersey. A lot of people say it's Annandale, but Annandale's on the other side of Clinton.
situation as the Norfolk Southern Purge of 2020.
Hooking up the country, helping business run.
Got to keep an eye on the time here because I got to go somewhere at 11:45. But you know, I can always finish this when I get back. 703 locomotives. Good God, how did we get to this point? Communism.
Let's jump the clock back to 2015. Norfolk Southern CEO at the time,
All right, I was just joking. It wasn't communism, but I have written a few fan fictions where Norfolk Southern gets taken over by the KGB, because 1982 when they merged, that was when we were still enemies with Russia or the Soviet Union.
Charles Moorman would step down as CEO,
Charles
giving the role to the late James A. Squires.
Late?
Now,
He
Squires
died?
had joined the company back in 1992 as he worked his way up to becoming president in 2013 before securing his role as a CEO.
I actually
And
thought Squires
this
was good as a
decision would
CEO when
kind
I
of come
first
with
saw
some
him.
consequences, considering that Squire would begin changing the operations of Norfolk Southern with
Okay,
the
maybe he
implementation
wasn't
of
that
precision
good.
scheduled railroading. And one of these
God.
factors was his Top 21 plan, which planned to reduce operating expenses by
So if he
60%,
died, who's running Norfolk Southern
alongside
now?
blending in different commodities onto
I
fewer
swear, if it
freight
really is a
trains.
Russian, I'm going to be surprised.
Other factors included rail yards and repair facilities being
Shut
closed,
down.
with one infamous example being the legacy
actually remember
Roanoke
that.
shops closing in 2020, optimization of rail
I thought
networks
they were
with
going to do the
less
same
trains,
thing without tuna, but
layoffs,
could be
and the
mistaken.
biggest factor, at least to rail fans, was to purge its locomotive fleet by 40% in an attempt to reduce fuel consumption and cut operating costs.
Okay, reducing
Yeah, this is
fuel
where shit got
consumption kind of makes sense. I mean, if you want to protect the environment and stuff, but you know, the environment's fine the way it is now. I mean, if you want to operate more locomotives and try and get more power to get, your cargo to actually be on time, it's a necessary sacrifice. Oh, look, a caboose. Normally, the
You
cabooses
see,
I've seen
Norfolk
on
Southern's
NS
roster
Freights are
around
from Conrail.
2015 was vast.
Oh my goodness.
Alongside your contemporary Dash 9s, Aces, Gevos, SE40s, and GP38s,
I don't
You had-
play this game, but it looks like he's using Notch 8 or something else.
had
I'm
niche
sure it's down in
locomotive
the
models
description.
like Dash 8s, SC80 Max, SC60s of various cab designs, yard switchers, older
God, I love the
SC70s,
sound
GP60s,
effects
etc.
as the
Not
engines
to
keep
mention
piling
unique
up
or
on each
special
other.
equipment like the F units and Heritage units. And the Steam
Wow.
program, if anyone cares. Norfolk Southern was also in the midst of rebuilding its fleet of Dash 9s,
I actually would
SC60s,
like to see
and
the Steam
eventually
program come
SC70s
back.
for continued use. So it looked like a pretty stacked roster, and Norfolk Southern did have long-term plans to
I know a
standardize
lot of
its
people
roster
complain about
through
the Crescent
rebuilding.
cab, but that actually looks pretty
Now,
good.
the only retirements
I've seen
around
it a
that
lot on the
time were
SD60Es.
worn out
They were also
4-axles,
used in the
failed
Dash
gen
8.5s.
sets, whatever these abominations
Oh, wow.
were, and the standard cab Dash 8s.
Oh my god, those are
But
hideous.
by 2019,
I'm glad
as a result
those
of
got
PSR,
retired.
a majority of the road's DC power would be thrown into storage due to the reduced traffic levels that PSR brought with it.
Uh-huh.
The first retirements would take place
You
that
also
same
wanted to
year,
upgrade
with the
into
wipeout
AC
of the
traction
SC60s across wide, standard, isolated, and Triclops variants,
Triclops.
including the removal of the older F units, as Squires allegedly deemed them as
Luckily, I've seen 4270 on the Reading and Northern. It's now been renumbered to 270. 4271, which also got renumbered to 271, operates somewhere in South Carolina. I don't remember. But Trains Magazine in 2021 uploaded, or why did they say uploaded? They created a video that you can buy on DVD that focuses entirely on full width engines like this, F units or E units, you name it. And they actually show the Norfolk Southern engines here during and after their time on Norfolk Southern. So like I said, I've seen the Reading and Northern engines, but I haven't seen the ones that are in South Carolina. That's 271 and 274. I think it's 274. I remember the other B unit was 275. That's also in the Reading and Northern with 270, but I don't remember what the other B unit is. That's with 271.
a waste of money to run, which translated to CEO talk means, I need more money, I no need special choo-choo.
Yeah, that's kind of stupid. I mean, if you need more money, then just do a better job running your freights. I mean, it's not the OCS train's fault. And you also need a lot of special choo-choos, like the 611 he mentioned earlier, or the other engines that were part of the Southern Steam program, like the 4501, the 630. And I know it's been like 3 decades since the 1218 last ran, but let's see that engine come back to life. I also know my friend on Facebook, Victoria Broski, also wants to see that engine return.
However, if you thought that was already a sign of things to come, oh boy.
That's
Once
not
2020 hit, things got worse. As Norfolk Southern announced the plan to remove 500 locomotives from its roster,
It initially was 500.
but the number
passed
increased
the
to
target was
703 to make its PSR-centric
man.
roster as more reliable, productive, and spend less time in the shops.
Yeah.
And what were the
I'll
casualties?
tell you.
Let's see.
It was pretty
16
cool. Oh, wow.
slugs,
16
31
slugs,
MP15Es, 28 Spartan Cab SE70s, 71 SE70Ms with both early and notch nose variants,
Oh,
including the
wow.
3 from the New York Susquehanna, 7 SE75Ms from BNSF, 80
See, I knew that Norfolk Southern had SD75Ms, but I never got a chance to see those, nor did I see the Cyclops SD60s. But I'll tell you, right now, I'm lucky I got to see some of the standard cab variants of the SD60s and SD70s. One time I saw an SD70, I actually thought it was an SD50, but it was running on an eastbound intermodal through eastern Pennsylvania between a Dash 8, which was the lead unit, and the Penn Central Heritage unit. That was actually the very first time I ever saw a Heritage unit, and I was very grateful to do that.
4 SC70M-2s, 33 unrebuilt GP59s, 29 SC80 Max, 154
I don't know what it is about the
CWs,
59s,
including
but I
all
missed them.
12 8.5s, thank God, 66 SC70 ACUs,
See, I know they're called Dash 8.5s, but earlier I called it Dash 8.5. Just something about that sounds better. And something about the GP59s. I don't know what it is, but I miss them. I really do.
and multiple GP38-2s, GP40-2s, and SC40-2s, some of which were bought secondhand.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. Reading Northern
That's
also did that.
quite a lot to dispose of, huh?
However, they still have some on their roster.
It's fair to say that rail fans were
Try and get 'em while
divided
you
on
can.
this decision. And it's pretty
Oh,
clear to see
since-
that plenty of foamers were outraged by
it's a
this.
pretty popular
while
clip to show
some
people
tried
that are
to
angry.
think logically and
No.
tell people to accept PSR and move on. Although,
I don't know what
to
it's
be
about
fair,
that
none of
nerd
us knew that
emoji, but
PSR
it
would
always
lead
makes
to
me
one of the
laugh.
infamous disasters in recent years. But why would NS dispose of that many locomotives, you may say?
I mean, the Dash 8s make sense, but with the SC70M-2s, when they were getting rid of those, they were like 15 years old at that point. You could have kept them much longer.
For once, I'll try and set aside a foamer's bias and try to apply some sense or logic in this. Nonetheless,
24,
a few possible
23.
factors why Norfolk Southern retired
I
in
wonder if
mass
that's an engine
can
that Cal
include
Unit Productions
number
has a
one,
special connection
operating
with.
costs.
Operating
If there's
costs.
one thing that shareholders love, it's
Of
profit.
course, you're going to have a
And
bag
if
with
the
dollar
amount of
signs
money
on it.
needed to keep these locomotives maintained and operating means little money for the shareholders. And that would never do. Okay, in all seriousness, my guess is that with the amount of locomotives
Multiple
on
active
Norfolk Southern
locomotive models of
rostered,
different eras
the
and
fuel,
builders,
running, and repair
millions of
costs would be
dollars
rather
towards keeping
high,
running and maintained.
especially with the variety of locomotives present on the roster. With Norfolk Southern reducing the amount of active locomotives,
I guess you really
means that the
can't
rail-
call it variety now because, I mean, they still have a few EMD models, but the majority of engines they run seem to be more and more from General Electric. I mean, I realize they haven't bought a new engine in like 4 or 5 years from now, but with all the rebuilds they keep doing to their Dash 9s and every other GE model, it's clear to see that they want to stick with as many General Electric models as they can. CSX has been doing the same thing, but at least they have some older EMD models as well. Like, you can still see a few SD70 Max if you're lucky, but you know, I think they should give EMD another chance. But at the same time, it's also their fault for still doing nothing but building SD70 Aces over and over again. It's been 20 years since that model's been introduced. Move on. Do something different, please.
Railroad would save money on running them, which in theory sounds like a way to reduce the amount of fuel for locomotives, hence why many were stored and retired. This was especially prevalent with the reduced amount of
Trains combine
trains
the
needed
massive
with
200
PSR,
plus car
meaning less
trains.
fuel consumption and saving on profits, meaning more money for greedy shareholders. Number 2. Age. You gotta consider that some of the locomotives
That's what I
retired
said earlier
were
with the
past
Dash
the usual
8s.
life expectancy of a locomotive.
But as I said earlier,
Usually
the
lasting
SD70
20 to
M-2s,
25
it really
years
didn't
in
make any
service
sense.
at best. Unless you're like the EMDs. Models like the SC60s and Dash 8s were past the usual lifespan and were pretty dated from a technology standpoint, albeit without
SD70s were
rebuilds.
from 1988.
Hell, even the SC70Ms and M2s,
Either that or I
which were
misheard.
built as early as 2004 and as late as, let's say, 2005 and 2006, even they were nearing 20 years old when their service life was cut short. And with rising operating
Surprised they're
costs
using a Colt
alongside the lack of
1911.
spare parts and declining mechanical conditions
Actually, I
of many
shouldn't
of
be
these
surprised. That's a
locomotives,
common pistol.
they can only go for so
for a lot
long
of
before they
stuff.
can finally give up and die. Hence why NS chose to retire most models when they got the chance.
Hmm.
Albeit some of them should have been reconsidered before being disposed. 70Ms. It does beg the question as to why
Surprised you
NS
didn't
could
mention
have
the
just
Dash
rebuilt
9s.
a couple of them. I mean,
There's
they've done
still a
with the
few.
ST60Es
There's still a few now
and the
that haven't been rebuilt,
ST70s,
but time is running out for
and
them.
the Dash 8s, they've already tried that, didn't work, so I can kind of get it.
They suck.
Besides, some railroads would have done away with locomotives that crews likely dreaded to work with. Like, then again, someone in the comments that worked for NS could probably explain like their opinions on these locomotives. I don't know. Number 3, reduce workforce.
Yeah.
With the amount of
Yep.
workers getting
I
laid
remember
off
hearing
and
about
the
that,
closure
too.
of Roanoke, I could only
Again,
imagine
they only
that
did
the
that just to
existing
please the
locomotive shops would
shareholders
be
and
put to
save more
hell
money.
and back in keeping a more active fleet like
That's
alive.
the problem with a lot of
On
corporations
top of like
these
Altoona
days. They
being
don't care about
backlogged
making
with
their
diesel
customers happy.
locomotives,
They
meaning
just
that
only
the
care about
repair
making the
queues
shareholders happy.
would get full instantly. Like, I can't imagine the deadlines remaining untouched with locomotives waiting for returns to service. That probably wouldn't happen.
Oh, those are just low
Especially
bats. I
with
thought
how
one of the
NS is
windows were
persistent with
smashed.
PSR. On top of the reduced amount of
Less
crews, that could
crews,
mean
more
less trains would be
locomotives,
needed,
less
and most of the
people,
locomotives
more
would have just
time
been
put in
sitting in
storage
storage
or
anyways, waiting to be reprived
Mm-hmm.
in active service. And now comes the last factor, which I feel is probably the most important. Number 4, standardization.
Oh.
Let's be real.
yeah.
This is what I feel is undoubtedly a major
there are the
reason why
F units
NS
again.
chose to get rid of the majority of its models. Considering that beforehand, Norfolk Southern rostered more than
2019.
20 models in active service.
The standard cab Dash 9s were still in service in 2019? Well, it says pre-2019. It could be 2018. But yeah, that's a lot. SD40Es, you still have those today. But I already see a few of these that are definitely going away.
And you can only imagine the amount of spare parts and reliability issues that can arise with a varied fleet. While yes, it may be fun to see these varieties on a majority of these trains, consider
Not
the
those.
operational
Not
headache
the
on
standard
keeping a
cab
varied
Dash
fleet
9s. Those are
running with
ugly.
different technologies,
Wide cabs are
reliability
better.
issues, cab designs, etc. It only provides more costs on keeping these non-standard and sometimes dated locomotives alive. Sure, you can go for rebuilding them in AC power to standardize
I know
them,
I said this already,
but
but
then
the
again,
sound effects he
Norfolk
keeps
Southern doesn't
using.
give a shit for rebuilding EMDs
I
and
just
would
can't
have
get
wanted to
enough of
find
that.
any time to dispose
Especially
of
the Team Fortress 2.
Either
might
way,
do it
with
again.
the reduced roster,
Oh,
it
no.
helps standardize the fleet of locomotives, save on repair costs, and reduce inventory on extra parts for
Yeah.
these models.
Yeah. That makes sense too. I remember Amtrak doing that.
Now, while many locomotives were understandably retired, some I feel didn't deserve to be retired.
Mm-hmm.
Hence this next segment. Tier list time.
Oh, yay!
So,
Tier list time.
I'm sure you know how this works, but for this
I've
one,
seen these already. I
I'll
thought about
rank
doing
them
one
based
myself.
on whether it was worth retiring them or C, no, they weren't worth
Not worth
retiring.
retiring. Okay.
Also, the quickly
That should be pretty
disclaimer,
simple.
whatever said in this section is
We
my
might actually
personal
finish
opinion.
this before 11.
If you feel like a particular model should have been retired
This
or
is
just
my
kept
opinion.
around, feel free to put your opinions in the comment sections down below. Just, be respectful and rational, alright? Now then, let's begin.
The tier.
Let's start off with the 80 Max. So, I remember
That
hearing that they were
reverb.
high on fuel consumption, and
goodness.
the general operating costs made them, pretty redundant. Not to mention, Norfolk Southern wanted to try a rebuild program with them, but I get why the 80 Max were retired, but I'm curious to see how the ACU
He's
program
gonna
went
put
for
it on
them.
B.
for them.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, yeah, I'm gonna be honest.
I'm gonna say earlier I mentioned how EMD should do something that's not an SD70 Ace as a new locomotive. They should probably do an SD80 Ace. It's time to move on from the SD70 and do something different.
Norfolk Southern did the ACUs dirty.
Oh, maybe do a
It's kind of
GP70
funny how
for
they
all I care.
bought
Just do
90
something
Max
that's
and
not an
rebuilt them
SD70
back in
Ace,
2016,
please.
2017, only for them to just throw them out within 3 to 4 years of them operating. Unlike Canadian Pacific, which was another user of the ACUs, they were also prone to their issues, but at least the company was able to iron them out. Whereas Norfolk Southern just looked at them and just said, nope, throw them away. I'm gonna be honest, Norfolk
I am surprised Norfolk Southern went down that path. I mean, I remember seeing them as helpers on Horseshoe Curve when I was visiting in April of 2023. I thought they would have arrived. I thought they would have stuck around much longer. And I remember seeing a lot of them on the Lehigh line leading freights and other stuff like that. They definitely should have stuck around longer.
Southern should have just focused on ironing out the issues with them rather than just disposing of them. Dash 8s. definitely worth getting rid of.
Yeah.
Norfolk
I
Southern had
said
a
that
bad
already.
experience with rebuilding the Dash 8s, and I'm pretty sure they wouldn't want to try the
I
same
did
thing
see a few of
again
them in
with the Y
2019,
caps.
but
GP59s.
yeah, it was still pretty cool to see them in 2017,
I mean,
2018.
Norfolk Southern does have the GP60s, and the GP59s feel a bit non-standard, but
Put them in B.
did Norfolk Southern also rebuild them? So
Yeah.
I'm gonna say B tier. F9As. I
I
kinda
also
get it
saw
where they were-
something called a GP38-3 once at SEPTA's Norristown Transportation Center in December of 2019. That was a rebuild of a GP50. I wonder if GP30-3s are still a thing.
coming from of getting rid of them. Like, sure, they may have been upgraded, but at the end of the day, they're still like post-war diesel locomotives masquerading as like GP38s underneath. A tier, I guess.
No.
You're all gonna hate me for that, but
Come on, I mean, you had a whole fleet of passenger cars, and you had those F9s for a reason. I mean, it will still be cool to see the new SD70 models that are pulling the special train, but like I said, it would be great if they had something that wasn't an SD70 Ace. EMD, third time's the charm. Do something newer.
at least the current owners at least like using them. SD70M-2s. Bro, C tier.
Thank
Couldn't
you.
they have just converted them into AC traction or whatever?
I
Alright,
mean, they're only
now
around
we
for,
have
like,
a double
15
whammy.
years.
The SC40-2s and the Jeeps. I'm kind of on
They
the fence
still
about
do their
this,
job.
considering the fact that Norfolk Southern would probably need that much local power.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, depending on like the mechanical status of some of the retired units, I kinda get it. And again,
right,
Norfolk
yeah.
Southern could have just gutted some of those out for spare parts or whatever, instead of
Right.
just disposing of them. So I'm kind of gonna be honest with B tier.
Alright,
MP15Es. Which Class 1 railroad gives a shit about end-cap switchers now?
Yeah.
A tier. ST.
I was gonna say, I mean, it would be cool if they did more like newer models of those, but at the end of the day, they don't provide as much power as the Jeeps or SD40s. So, like, if you're switching or if you need them at a hump yard, it kind of makes sense to retire old-fashioned models like that. But it'd still be cool to see a newer version. Like, imagine an MP20 or an SW. Don't say 70. Don't say 70. I was going to say an SW2000. Because we had the SW1500. Then they switched to the MP15s. But doing an SW2000 I think would be pretty cool.
70s. You know my answer on this, C tier. The fact that Norfolk Southern was doing a rebuild program before PSR came into effect really tells you a lot about how I feel.
Right.
And last but not least, the SC60s.
Weren't perfect.
Yeah,
machines.
C tier. They should have continued rebuilding them in SC60Es. And there you go.
What's next? That was a little odd. Okay, back to the slop.
With a majority of the locomotive roster wiped away, Norfolk Southern's roster did become more standardized with a reduced amount of active models. While
Hang on, I just wanted to go back a little bit and double check something. So yeah, you don't have many EMD stuff now. You just have the SD60Es, the SD70 ACCs, SD40s, Ace. Really getting tired of those right now. And everything else is just basically General Electric.
of active models. While this decision did benefit Norfolk Southern from
BNSF
an
engine.
operating and financial perspective, there is one factor to consider. Power shortages. This tends to happen when freight traffic increases and the railroad's rosters can't supply enough locomotives, often leading to them borrowing other locomotives from other railroads, which
I haven't
especially was the
seen
case for
Norfolk
Norfolk
Southern
Southern
do
during the
that in a
2020s.
while.
Hence the higher presence of foreign power.
But I did see a GEVO from Norfolk Southern being borrowed from BNSF to power one of their trains west through Fort Madison, Iowa. The one time I tried taking a break from Norfolk Southern, and they still end up following me.
during this time. Now,
But I can
Norfolk
safely
Southern
say
did
I've
allegedly
seen a lot
state
of
that 402
BNSF
locomotives
engines
were
on
kept
Norfolk Southern,
around
too.
as a surge fleet, which is a set of locomotives that only would return to
Oh,
service
okay.
in case of a rise of traffic. But I'm willing to
Right.
bet that this was a majority of Dash 9s that were rebuilt in the C6Ms. So, yeah, Norfolk Southern did put themselves in a bit of a dilemma.
Why are we so power short?
Now, one thing I'd like to note is that the Rock
Also, BNSF has a similar rebuild. Instead of the AC-44C6M, they call it the AC-44C4M. What that means basically is that instead of having all of the wheels powered on the trucks, the middle ones don't provide any power, so it gives them less tractive effort. But again, with the fuel saving stuff, I think that's why they did it, because generally you burn more fuel when you use more power.
Roster standardization did have a few outliers.
Oh, I remember this song.
The specific examples I'm referring to are the three
it's called,
SW1001s as shop switchers and the 6 SC45-2s. One of them, as
Those
we know,
got
is
retired?
repainted into the Erie Lackawanna
Oh,
colors.
right.
Now, I'm just gonna ask this.
Oh
but,
God, not this song.
How in the fuck? How did we lose SD70s, which were built 30 years later than these locomotives, and yet
Saved combo
6 of
for
them
not fuel.
were only rostered and are somehow still in active service?
They must be more
Like,
reliable.
what kind of fucking logic
I
is
mean-
this? Like, okay, the SW switchers I kind of get considering the fact they're shop switchers, but the SD45-2s, like, could you just use SD40s instead?
No,
And this can't be-
I mean, they're like SD40s. They've got good reliability, but they provide more power. And at the same time, the SD60Es you mentioned earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if those came along to replace more Jeeps and SD40s. I mean, not that I want them to, but you know, progress is progress.
Because one of them got into heritage colors. There has to be some reason. Was it because they were
I really can't
similar
take
enough
this
to
seriously,
SC40
though, because of the
from a
music.
mechanical standpoint? Who knows? Someone at NS would probably know this. So, anyways, sorry about my little tangent. Now, Norfolk Southern, to an extent, tried to fix its roster dilemma.
Okay.
Keyword attempted. First,
Oh.
we have the return of a few SC70M-2s
right. I
in
think I see where he's
2023.
going with this.
That's right. They all weren't gone, as it seems like 48
yeah.
units were kept around as potential surge locomotives.
Right.
And
Yeah.
thankfully, a majority of them did return to service across the NS system, with 2 being rebuilt into AC units and reclassified as SC70I CCs. And it's
Huh.
fair to say you can still see the SC70M-2s in active road service. Is
I mean,
what
I
would've-
realize the M-2 is more or less the same as an Ace, but, you know, I mean, it's... At least it has a different classification. And SD70 ICC, I might give that a chance. In fact, I think 1250 and 1251 are those new units I mentioned earlier that are pulling the officer special, you know, the OCS with the thing that the F units used to pull.
said if it weren't for the fact that all of them are currently listed as stored on NS-9.
I like that
God, that
website.
is such a fucking letdown.
And I remember
Wow.
a lot of times in 2019, well, between 2019 and 2021, I always kept a close eye on that roster or website to see what kind of engines were running and what I'd be able to catch. Around that time, though, I basically saw nothing but Dash 9s over and over and over again on intermodals. Speaking of intermodals, let's see what's going on here.
Then we had a few leasers, in the form of a few BNSF SC70 Max from Wells Fargo
Right.
being leased out.
Wells Fargo?
Albeit, they were all
that-
gone by 2024.
Is that really what
However,
WF
Norfolk Southern
means?
did purchase locomotives of their own,
Huh.
in the form of a few CEFX AC-44.
Yeah, I was going to say I heard about these, but I've never actually seen them. They probably have been on the Lehigh line before, but I haven't had the opportunity to see them. I mean, earlier in December, I also went out on the Reading line. I also spent some time in Macungie, and I also, just a couple days more recently, went to Bethlehem. I didn't see any of these engines here. And it's probably not likely I'm going to now. Unless Cal says they're still in service, we'll see.
And a couple of GCX-9s, only for them to be rebuilt in the C6Ms.
Oh,
and we lost the
that's
2
why.
painted in CMQ colors.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yay! More AC slop! And aside from that,
I mean, I remember hearing about them break down, but I mean, is it really considered slop if they're still in use? I mean, Norfolk Southern's been using them for a while now. I mean, if they were problematic, I'm sure all of them would be retired by now. I mean, they can't be that stupid to keep building more engines that consistently break down and don't do what they're supposed to
Nothing else. Norfolk Southern's roster is still suffering from the PSR
do. I
hell.
guess. Or high
With how
hoods.
the company's been in recent years, who's to say that the current fleet is already being pushed to the limits?
That's a
I
Dash
mean,
9.
Norfolk
Wonder
Southern's
that got
complaining
rebuilt.
about power shortages, and yet you still see locomotives stored in deadlines in like Altoona. Then again, those could be in
Fix
their
them
rebuild queues.
and put them to
I don't know.
use. It can't be that
I
complicated.
guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens when the correct monopoly occurs.
Ah, right.
And if you want my opinions on that, yeah, I hope this ends up like SPSF, please.
Somehow, I don't think that's going to happen. But I will say this. If Union Pacific does end up buying Norfolk Southern and operates here in New Jersey and everywhere else in the East Coast, I'm sure they would at least do better than Norfolk Southern. I mean, they've been around much longer for a reason.
Now that we covered all of that, you might be wondering where some of these purged locomotives ended up.
The Fates.
Well, a majority of these
there's
were
that
sold
caboose
off the
picture
Progress Rail, either to be stripped for parts, rot away, be resold, or in the worst case, scrapped. But
Yeah, that
thanks to the
shouldn't
mass
be surprising.
purge, though, it did give multiple railroads a chance to get new locomotives to their rosters, with
Alright.
some companies including R.J. Corman,
Oh, yeah.
Indiana Railroad,
Oh, cool.
Ontario Northland, Red and Blue
Nice.
Mountain and Northern,
Yep, I mentioned them
Chicago
earlier.
Fort Wayne and Eastern.
Chicago, Fort Wayne, and Eastern. Looks like they bought just one. That's it? You sure they didn't buy more? I hate the standardized livery for this. Like Genesee, Wyoming. I know a lot of people have probably already known about this for now, but Genesee, Wyoming owns a lot of different short lines, and they keep going for this like generic orange and black. Like, just let the short lines prosper on their own. You don't have to be greedy assholes and screw everything up.
Chicago, Fort Wayne, and Eastern, Aberdeen, Carolina, and Western,
Yep, there it is.
Cater Perot Railnet, Ferromex,
Oh,
New Brunswick Southern, New
Oh,
York
wait. That's cool too, by the way. I remember New York, Susquehanna, Western buying a few SD70M-2s. But Maine Northern. This looks pretty cool. When I first saw one of their engines, I actually thought it was the Illinois Terminal Heritage Unit 1072, because you see, it has the same front end as the 1072. And not exact, but you know, the green with the yellow stripes. I don't know how long it would take me to get from my home to wherever this railroad operates, but I have to see this. This is pretty impressive.
New Brunswick Southern, New York Susquehanna. They should have bought back the SC70Ms. Carload Express,
Oh, Carlos,
Web
that's
Asset
cool.
Management, and Jiangxing International.
So that's Chinese, isn't it? I guess he'll tell me soon.
What? Okay. Allegedly, a few Norfolk Southern SC60Is
Close
were
enough to
sold to a
communism.
company in China called Jiangxing International, according to this Facebook post. Considering that there is no further evidence of these locomotives ending up in said country, let alone any documented proof of them in active service, I highly believe this is fake, so take this with a grain of salt.
I mean, with a lot of American companies wanting to outsource stuff to China and other Asian countries, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if China wanted to come to the United States and take over. Kind of like what I said earlier with my fan fictions with Norfolk Southern being taken over by communist Russia.
There are a handful of other companies I forgot to mention, but if you know any ex-Norfolk Southern locomotives on other railroads, feel free to comment them below. Aside from that,
I also
any other
remember in
Norfolk Southern locomotives
2021
that
when I
weren't
did
sold to-
Engines of SEPTA, I had an episode where SEPTA bought some SD70M-2s, and they're like, wait a minute, this is diesel. We can't operate passenger trains with diesel engines. Scrap them at once. I wonder if people still remember that.
leasing company or railroad have more than likely been scrapped. Sadly, amongst these casualties were the SD80 Max, as all of them were scrapped, rendering this iconic
Seriously?
locomotive model extinct. Unless you
God.
count the bare bone remains that's sitting somewhere in the Canadian Pacific.
I probably shouldn't laugh, but that was hilarious. What conclusion? Only got 3
So
minutes left.
Norfolk
Let's see.
Southern's purge of 2020 was quite a tough decision by the railroad. Now, I get it. The company has to standardize the locomotive fleet. But you can't deny that
Like
some
I said,
models
Amtrak
didn't
did the
deserve
same
to get
thing.
retired, and that Norfolk Southern
I guess
did
you could
have
also
some
say
good
the same
footing
thing
with
for
its
SEPTA,
rebuilding
since they
programs.
only operate Silverliner
Ultimately, this came at
4s,
the cost
5s,
of
and
many
AC64s.
locomotives being thrown away, all for the sake of getting more money to satisfy the shareholders
Oh, not
that
this
meet
song
right
again.
off of Wall Street, because
Right,
fuck
it
making
gets-
the railroad any more safer, right? Who cares if they reduce safety standards or park trains on the side of a fucking mountain? Just so long as the shareholders get more money, then nobody higher up cares. This is Norfolk Southern. They totally care for their employees and their
Thank
people.
you to our railroaders.
Okay, sorry.
I gotta see Engine 1000 though. I mean, it's probably already been fixed from its vandalism, but I thought the red, white, and blue was done to celebrate Memorial Day. Because I remember seeing that. I actually thought Norfolk Southern did that itself.
I got carried away. Anyways, regardless of the power purge, it's proven to have its pros and cons, such as locomotives getting new homes while at the same time, Norfolk Southern
this
continues to
song again.
struggle from never-ending power shortages, and some locomotive models getting lost at time. This indecisive decision
I mean,
ultimately led to the stagnant roster change in 24th
Like I
century
said, it's time
railroading.
for EMD to step
And
in
while not
and
the first example,
build that
it's
SD80
one of
Ace.
the examples of a decision that
If
killed
they make
the
it like the
spirit of
SD80
Norfolk
Mac, that'd be
Southern,
even better.
a once glorious Class 1 railroad.
Well, I guess this is the end.
The country helping business run.
This is a pretty cool game though. I gotta find out what he was using to
Helping this big country move ahead as
do all this stuff. Alright, that's the end credits, so we're not going to
Hello,
watch
everyone.
that. I am going to take a look, however, at the description here. Okay, he only mentioned the music he used, not the game. But, yeah, I'm sure I'll figure it out myself. In the meantime, thank you for watching. I hope to see you again in another reaction video. Or whatever I decide to do in the future. Thanks again. Take care.